By the end of this video, you will know what an API is, how to use an API, how to create, read, update, and delete data on the server. This is just a sneak preview of what we are about to discuss. After watching this video, you will be able to write this code yourself. You will be able to create new data on the server, read data from the server, change a data record, and delete data as necessary. We will also discuss how to write the equivalent JavaScript code of each HTTP request. That is, how to map an HTTP request to the equivalent JavaScript code. Let's get started. So, what is an API? API is an abbreviation and it stands for Application Programming Interface. Well, it isn't helping. However, I find the definition of Wikipedia helpful. API is a way for two or more computer programs to communicate with each other. What is a REST API, Web API, or HTTP API? Long story short, REST API is an HTTP service that can be called using standard web libraries and tools. Now that you already know what an API is, let's discuss how to use an API. We will discuss the basic CRUD operations. CRUD stands for Create, Read, Update, Delete. Let's discuss Create first. If you want to follow along, you find the source code in the GitHub repo of this playlist. You find the link in the description below the video. I already have a server running in the background. This server will respond to our create, read, update, delete requests. I assume that you are already familiar with the HTTP message format and that you know how to make an HTTP request with the REST client in Visual Studio Code. If that sounds unfamiliar to you, then please go back and watch the first video on this playlist. You find the link in the description below. I also assume that you know how to make an HTTP request with fetch in JavaScript. We learned that in the second video on this playlist. On the left, you see the data on the server. We currently have one car in the list of cars. The panel in the middle shows the code executed on the client side. We would like to add this car to the list of cars on the server. To do so, we make a post request to the /cars endpoint. So the HTTP method is post, and the path is /cars. Let's execute this post request. Indeed, the car has appeared on the server. It is permanently stored in the list of cars. And on the right, we see the response from the server as seen by the client. The status code is 201 created, and the response also includes the location header with the link to the newly created car. We can open this link in the browser. I have opened that link in the browser. Indeed, I see our newly created car. Note that our car has received an ID from the server. We didn't specify any ID in the post request. Another way to add the new car would be to make a put request, where we specify the requested ID ourselves. This is common. However, our server does not support creation with put requests. It is okay, it doesn't have to. We make GET requests to read data from the server. If I make a GET request to the /cars endpoint, I get the list of all the cars back. So let's send this request. And indeed, that's the response from the server, and it includes all the cars on the list. Now let's suppose that I only want to get the second car back, the car with the ID number 2. So I specify the ID by /2. And if I send this request, I only get the second car back. If I want to get the first car, I specify the ID number 1 there. And I only get the first car back. If I specify here an invalid ID, then nothing comes back, and the status code is 404 not found. That's how we read data from the server. How can I update data on the server? In this example, we would like to append color information to this car. We would like to save the color information that this car is red. One way is to make a put request to the cars endpoint with the ID of the car being updated. A put request will completely replace the existing item with the data that we send. Let's send this request. And indeed, we see that the sport car is now red. Please keep in mind that a put request will completely overwrite the existing entry on the server. Another way to update data on the server is to send a patch request to the cars endpoint with the ID of the car being updated. In this case, we would like to append the color information silver to the car with the ID number 1. Let's send this request. Indeed, this car is now silver. Note that this will only append an attribute to the existing item. It doesn't overwrite or replace the item. And finally, how do I delete data from the server? If I don't want to keep track of the second car, I send a delete request to the /cars/2 endpoint. /2 is the ID of the car. If I send this request, then the car disappears. And in the response, I see 200 OK, so the car has been deleted. If I don't want to keep track of the first car either, then I specify /1, the ID of the car, to be deleted. I send this request, and now my list of cars on the server is empty. What happens if I specify an invalid ID? I send this request, 404 not found. Indeed, there is no such car on the server. We would like to implement the CRUD operations in JavaScript. A quick recap. How do we make an HTTP request in JavaScript? We must call the built-in fetch function with a URL as the first function argument and with the JavaScript object as the second. This JavaScript object can have several attributes. For us, the relevant ones are method, headers, body. Let's implement the create operation first, following this template. This is how to do it. Notice that we specify the host in the URL and not under the headers. This is one important difference. The path is specified in the URL. The method is post. And we specify the remaining header, content type application JSON, under the headers. The data that we are sending to the server forms the message body. We must turn the data into string ourselves. We must call the built-in JSON stringify with the data. That's how to implement the create operation in JavaScript. Let's implement the read operation next. Since we are not trying to upload anything, we are not trying to send data to the server, we are trying to get data from the server. The message body is missing. Since there is no message body and the content type refers to the body, which is absent in this case, there won't be any headers either. And the default value for the method is get, so we can leave the method out as well. We can drop the entire second argument and call fetch with just one argument. That is, we call fetch with the URL only. Notice that we specified the host and the port number in the URL as well. This call will get the car with the ID number 2. If we want to list all the cars, then we must leave the ID out. And then this call will list all the cars on the server. The update operation with a put request is next. We completely replace the existing data record on the server with the new data. To make the put request, we specify the host and the path in the URL of the fetch call. The method is put. The content type is given under the headers. And we must turn the data into a string with JSON stringify. If we don't want to completely replace an existing data record, we only want to add or update an attribute, then we must make a patch request. In this case, the method is patch, but the rest is the same. Finally, to delete a car with a given ID, we make a delete request. Since we are not trying to send or upload anything to the server, there is no message body. In the fetch request, we specify the host and the ID of the car to be deleted. The method is delete. And that was all. This is how to implement CRUD operations in JavaScript. Did this video help? Then please give it a thumbs up. Please like it. If you have any questions or problems, please leave a comment right below, and I will do my best to get back to you. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one.